Okay, a very good afternoon to you all. Welcome back to our online session for ENM 6112 British for Prose. So, in the previous lecture, we discussed the first three essays of Charles Lamb from Block 2. Today, we will complete Block 2 by discussing Unit 9 and 10. Okay, the two essays which we will discuss today are the praise of chimney sweepers and a bachelor complaint of the behavior of married people. Okay, so this essays shows another side of Charles Lamb. They deal with social issues, sympathy, irony, and personal observation. So although the tone of Charles Lamb's essays is gentle and humorous, the essays he discusses are serious. He talks about Charles suffering, poverty, uh, marriage, freedom, and social attitudes. So as a postgraduate students, it is important for you to understand how Lamb combines humor with modern moral concern. So this lecture will help you see how uh, Lamb criticizes society without anger and teaches us compassion without preaching. Okay, so now let's move on to the next slides. Here we see the lecture contents. First, we will briefly recap the previous lecture where we discussed Unit 6, 7, 8 of Block 2. After that, we will clearly identify today's focus areas and which are Unit 9, 10, 10. These are the final two essays prescribed for Charles Lamb's for this block 2. Next, we will look at the learning goals. These goals will help you understand what you are expected to learn from today's lecture, especially for examinations, right? So then we will have a detailed discussion of both essays. We will talk about their themes, tone, style, humor, and social messages. So towards the end of the lecture, I will also explain the assignment questions for the next class. So please pay attention to the lecture, and if you have any questions, you may ask in the interaction sessions. Okay. And finally, I will conclude the lecture with a summary of today's lecture and then next steps. That is what we will discuss in the next class. So now, as you can see here on the slide, in the recap of previous lecture, you see there are 3 units already completed, right? And on the other hand, today's focus, there are 2 more. So now let's focus on 3 previous lectures. So why? Because before moving ahead, it's important to recap the previous lecture, because this will help you connect with the upcoming units, which we will discuss later in this lecture. So in the last class, we have discussed mainly 3 essays by Charles Lamb. What are they? All Fool's Day, Imperfect Sympathies, and Valentine's Day. In those essays, we saw Lamb's use of humor, personal memory, emotional honesty, the paraphernalia. We also noticed, how Lamb writes about ordinary life in a gentle and reflective way. Today, we move forward to the remaining units of essays of Block 2. Right, the praise of chimney sweepers and a bachelor's complaint of the behavior of married people. So these essays are different in themes, but similar in style. One deals with childhood suffering and social neglect, while the other deals with marriage, freedom, and personal choices. So together, these essays helps us understand Lamb as a socially aware and deeply human essayist. Okay, so now learning goals. What are the learning goals? Course objectives and course outcomes. Now let's look at the course objectives first. So this course objectives, tell you what the course expects you to learn from units 9 and 10. So the first objective is to examine Charles Lamb as a personal and reflective essayist. Even when he discusses social problems, he writes from personal feeling, not from theory. So the second objective is to understand social and moral issues in Charles Lamb's prose. He talks about poverty, child labor, marriage, and social behavior. The third objective is to analyze humor, irony, sympathy in Lamb's writing. Lamb criticizes, society generally using irony instead of anger. So the final objective is to develop critical reading skills in English prose essays. So this means understanding both, style and meaning. So if you keep these, objectives in mind, your reading will become, clearer and more focused. Okay. Now, what are the expected outcomes? So, which means expected outcome here means you should be able to do after completing what you should be able to do after completing this session or lecture. So, first, you should be able to explain the key themes in Lamb's essays, such as sympathy, social inequality, freedom, and personal responsibility. Second, you should also be able to analyze Lamb's prose style, tone, especially his gentle humor and conversational voice. Third, you should be able to relate Lamb's social criticism to historical context, especially 19th century English society. Okay, and finally, you should be able to write structured and and clear answers on Lamb's essays in examination. Because whatever you're studying is mainly for exam, right? You have to write in exam, assignment, right? So this it will also help in that in those cases. So if you can achieve these outcomes, you'll be well prepared. All right. So now let's move on to the next. That is the overview, brief overview. This thing I have already discussed in the previous lecture. Still, I'm repeating so that you can connect it easily. It helps you to understand better. So before we go to the unit 9, let us briefly look at the Charles Lamb as an essayist once again. So as you can see in this slide gives you a clear overview of Lamb's place in English prose, right? So Charles Lamb is known as an essayist of human sympathy and gentle irony. So he does not write about great historical events or political theories. Instead, he focuses on ordinary people and everyday life. Okay, one of the most important features of Lamb's writing is his blend of humor, nostalgia, and more reflection. Even when he writes about pain or suffering, his tone remains soft and humane. Do you know what is the meaning of humane? Humane, Humane. Momita, do you know meaning of humane? What is the meaning of humane? Humane. Human is manus. I'm talking human, Human. Sorry, Man. That is manus, right? Humane is kind. Okay. Ekta holo manus, and ekta holo kind. To be kind. Humane. Humane. Okay. So as you can, if you go So here this Lamb, Charles Lamb wrote about, he also wrote about, pain or suffering, but his tone of writing is always soft and kind or humane. Okay. Lamb also uses a personal voice. That is, his essays feels like more conversations with the reader. This conversational, prose makes his writing warm and approachable. So his essays also reflect the social realities of, 19th century's England, such as poverty, child labor, social customs, and marriage. So when you read Lamb, always remember that he is not attacking society aggressively. Okay, he is appealing to our human feelings and conscience. All right. So now we shall move to the essays. First, in Unit 9, we see the praise of chimney sweepers. So let's begin with the introduction. So this essay is a very short but very meaningful essay by Charles Lamb. In this essay, Lamb talk about the lives of child chimney sweepers, who were very poor children forced to work in dangerous conditions during the 19th century. Okay, so Lamb does not describe their suffering in a harsh or angry way. Instead, how he expressed, he combines sympathy with gentle irony. So this makes the essay emotionally powerful. So the essay represents emotions and suffering together. Lamb sees the children as cheerful and playful, even though their lives are hard. Okay, so by writing in this way, Lamb quietly criticizes social neglect and equality. He does not accuse.
কলেজের মধ্যে আসিল
Huh?
এটা কলেজের মধ্যে আসিল, এটা আগে পড়ছিলাম।
See, now it is related. Now you can understand easily. That's why it's good. You can relate it, right? So by writing in this way, this type of essay, Lamb not directly criticize. No, he doesn't directly say, "Hey, this society is horrible." Not like that. He silently criticizes social neglect and inequality. Okay, and he does not accuse society directly. Not directly. It's always indirect. Language is always whatever he is always indirect attack. Okay, so internally he's attacking or accusing society, but not direct accuse. Okay, but he makes that's how he makes the readers of his essays feel responsible. All right, so this essay actually shows deep compassion and his ability to speak about serious issues without bitterness. See, through his writing. Okay, so now what are the main themes and styles? So this slide explains, this slide in this particular slide explains the major themes and style of this essay. The praise of who? Chimney sweepers. So one of the major themes is childhood innocence and suffering. So Lamb shows how children suffers because of poverty and social injustice. All right. So next theme is another. It is social inequality. What is it exactly? Poor children are forced into labor because society looks away. Okay, so the essay also raises the idea of moral responsibility. Lamb suggests that society should care more for this children. He's actually giving us a lesson, right? So in terms of style, as you can see here, Lamb uses very gentle irony instead of anger. Okay, he does not shout or accuse directly. His criticism is very quiet but very effective. That's why, see, these things are written in back in 19th century, and we are still studying in 21st century, right, Mamita?
Mm-hmm.
So it has been how many years, how many hundred or 100 years ago he wrote this. Now, even now we are studying. Okay. So the tone of the essay of his writing is personal and emotional, which makes readers feel sympathy, rather than guilt. Okay, so the language is very simple, but the moral concern is very deep.
Deep.
This is typical of Lamb's prose style. There's the main themes and style of
Conversion.
this, praise of chimney speakers. Okay, the essay of the essay, the praise of chimney sweepers. All right.
All right.
So now let's move on to the next unit. That is next essay. That is a complaint of the behavior of married people. A bachelor's complaint of the behavior of married people. So let's see what actually is all about. Right. First, let's begin with the introductions. So, if you compare with the previous essay, this is a bit different, right?
Mm-mm.
The title is also different, right? It's about complaint. Complaint of whom? It's about complaint of married people, right? So the essay is written from the point of a view of bachelor, okay, someone who is unmarried. So Lamb himself never married. So the essay reflects, his personal experience. Okay, Momita. So the essay
Okay.
humorously criticizes married people. Again, not direct accuse, not like that, not direct criticize, but in a language play, the words play. Okay, that's why here I said that he humorously criticizes married people, especially their habits, attitudes, and a sense of superiority. All right, so Lamb exaggerates these behaviors to create comic effect. However, the humor is light-hearted, not bitter. In previous essay also he didn't directly attack, right? He didn't directly attack or accuse the society. Here also same thing, in a humorous way. So through this essay, Lamb explores social attitudes towards marriage. He questions, the idea that marriage is, the, is, he actually questions the idea that marriage is the only way of life, something like that. Because he himself didn't get married. He was never married. So he actually is questioning this idea of concept of marriage. It is the only way of life, living. Getting married is the way of living, something like that. Okay. So although the essay is funny, it also raises serious questions about freedom, independence, and personal choices. Okay. So now let's look at the themes and styles. Like the previous essay, there are some themes and styles. So one major theme is freedom versus responsibility. The bachelor enjoys. Who are bachelors? Momita, are you there? Who are bachelor? Okay. Are you still there, Momita? Okay, whatever. The bachelor, who are bachelor? The bachelors are unmarried people, right? So these bachelors enjoy independence while married people carry responsibilities and duties. That is freedom versus responsibility. Another thing is social expectations. Society often treats marriage as a standard and bachelor as incomplete. So Lamb also explored personal happiness and the right to choose one's lifestyle. So the tone is self-mocking, which means a Lamb does not take himself too seriously. Okay, so the language is informal and conversational, which makes the essay, enjoyable to read. So this essay shows Lamb's, Lamb's talent for turning personal experiences into thoughtful, humor. So now let's before I move on to the assignment, let me try to make a kind of comparative understanding. Okay, so if you compare this essay with 9 essay, the Place of Chimney Sweepers, and this bachelor's complaint of behavior where people, what do you get? So these two essays look very different on the surface, but they are connected by Lamb's outlook, like in the praise of chimney sweepers. In the essay of the Praise of Chimney Sweepers, Lamb focuses on social suffering, especially the suffering of poor people, poor children. The tone is quite sympathetic and serious, but never angry. Lamb wants readers to feel compassion. So in Bachelor's Complaint of the Behavior of Married People, Lamb focuses on social behavior and personal freedom. So the tone here is humorous and playful. He uses exaggeration to make his point. So in both essays, Lamb uses gentle irony. He does not attack society directly. Instead, he invites readers to reflect it. So another common features is the personal choice or personal voice. Lamb writes as an observer who is emotionally involved, not as a distant critic. So whether the Lamb is writing about child labor or marriage, his method remains the same. How? People look at the main themes like human sympathy, main ideas like human sympathies, humor, and quite moral reflections. So all these are included. Okay, these are his methods, the main methods. Right. So this comparative understanding, like the Praise of the Chimney Sweepers and the Bachelor Complaint of what is it? Bachelor Complaint of the Behavior of Married People. So when you do like this, a comparative study or understanding, it will help you understand the essays better. All right. So now we have completed around 5 essays of Charles Lamb here. So try to compare them, connect them. There though there may be there may be some differences at the surface level, right? But if you look at a deeper understanding or analysis, you'll find they are almost like same. The style is same. Okay, so in that way, try to do more comparison of all the 5 essays. Okay, try to prepare like that. In that way, you'll understand all the essays properly. All are somehow the style of writing is similar. All the essays of all the 5 essays of this block. All right. So actually, this is the end of unit 10 and also the block 2. The Charles Lamb, right? So next is let's move on to the assignment for next class. So from these lectures, right? From these lectures, I have prepared some questions, 2 or 3 questions that will help you prepare for your exam and understand the essays more in a more better way, right? So if you look at the first questions, it asks you to discuss Charles Lamb's treatment of childhood suffering. So while answering this, focus on Lamb's and sympathy and the tone and social concern. Okay, and the second question, try to analyze humor and irony in ambassadors complaint of the behavior of married people. Here, then try to mention the exaggeration, self-mocking humor. I have already said in the previous slides, right? And Lamb's balanced tone. And in the third question is like comparative question. It is a comparative questions. So you need to compare, Lamb's social concern in Unit 9 and Unit 10 with reference to his prose style. Okay, so try to solve these questions. So when you write your answers, try to write it in your own words. First, try to understand the essays, and then come to questions. Understand the questions. Then start writing in your own words. All right. So now let us summarize today's lecture. Today we completed block 2 of ENM 112 by studying the remaining units, unit 9 and 10 of Charles Lamb. So we discussed, Charles Lamb's sympathy for suffering, children and his humorous criticism of social attitudes towards marriage. So we also examined, Lamb's prose style, which is, conversational, personal, gentle. So his humor is never, cruel, and his criticism is never harsh. Okay. So through this, essays, we saw how Lamb writes about ordinary life and turns it into meaningful reflection. So I hope these lectures help you understand, Charles Lamb's essay, humane essayist. Humane means kind essayist, deeply concerned with, people and society. Okay. So with this, we have completed block 2. Block 2, Charles Lamb's. So in the next lecture, we shall go to block 3, where we will discuss, about A.G. Gardiner, another important English essayist. So please read the prescribed units before the next class, so that you can follow the discussion easily. So thank you for your attention and participation. So if you have any questions, you may ask now, or you may contact me through the official email or like WhatsApp provided. Momita, any questions, doubts, clarifications? You want to share something? You said that you have already read the praise of chimney sweeper. Anything? Momita? All right. If you have no questions or doubts with this we conclude today's lecture. Thank you so much. See you in the next class.